they had said to me, tomorrow you will go home, inshallah. And I said, what is this inshallah that you say? Because whenever it happens at the end of a sentence, it never happens. And they said, no, tomorrow you will go home, inshallah. And then the war began. More than 50 cruise missiles were dropped on Kabul that night.
You were there?
I was there. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. I had covered wars and conflicts before, and it never occurred to me until that moment, bombs don't discriminate. They can't tell civilian from military, man, woman, child.
There's nothing such like smart bombing, no such thing like that?
No. And the terror that I felt that night mixed with I really thought that I will die and I'm going to be blown up by Britain and America.
Finally.
And, you know, the irony of it.
Yeah.
And I also thought there is no way that the Taliban will release me now. But the next morning, despite the high civilian casualties that had been suffered, the Taliban arrived with a people carrier vehicle and said, you're going home.
All of you?
No. The Christians, I had been separated from them. They thought I was being taken away to be executed. I've spoken to them since. And they were told not to talk about me, not to write about me, to erase me, forget I existed. And so they thought that I was being executed. I thought, actually, although they said they were taking me home, I thought, no, that they are going to kill me. And I was in fear of my life right up until the point where the Taliban diplomat turned round at Torkham and said, you can go, you're free to go. And I remember stepping out of the van backwards because I wanted to keep my eyes on them. I still didn't trust them. And turned round.
You thought someone would shot you, maybe?
Right at the last minute, and they smiled and said, go. And I started to walk towards the waiting Pakistan media. And one of them shouted, how are you? And I said, I'm fine. And they said, how did the Taliban treat you? And I thought about it in those few seconds. I walked towards the media, and I said, they treated me with courtesy and respect. And this is not what the media wanted. They wanted to hear about the torture, the abuse, maybe even gang rape, you know, everything that subsequently happened in Abu Ghraib.
At that time, you could understood what happened, or you couldn't understand it?
I couldn't really understand it, other than that they had treated me well, and I didn't know why. And it was a complete mystery to me. But like so many Western journalists covering that region of the world, I knew nothing about the culture. I knew nothing about their faith. I knew nothing about Islam. And everything that they did, I misinterpreted. During the interrogations that we had, they would look at the ceiling, they would look at the floor, they would look anywhere but at me. And I thought, yes, they're too guilty. They are so, you know, determined that they're going to kill me, they can't even make eye contact. Of course, I discovered later that this was the Taliban showing me respect by not looking at me. I didn't realize that at the time.
So you came back to UK?
I came back to the UK, and I thought about the promise that I made, And, you know, I come from the north of England. I say it's the tribal areas of Britain between Scotland and England. And, you know, where a person's bond, where their word is very important. And I thought, well, I did make a promise, so I'll keep it. But furthermore, as a journalist covering the Middle East and Asia, I thought that I really needed to know about Islam, because quite clearly, for these people anyway, it was a way of life, rather than just a faith that, that they picked up and put down when they felt like it. So I began reading the Holy Quran and studying Islam.
What was your first book that you decided to start with?
It was an English translation of the Holy Quran by A. Yusuf Ali. And
For the books?
And it had an index in the back. The books that I read were many and varied, ranging from a lot of translated works by Sheikh Abdullah Razam. There was also Sayyid Qutb, his milestones that I read. Quite a few books on women's issues to do with the quite a few books on women's issues to do with the faith, and I also read some biographies on the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, because it was very easy for me to read the Quran, because I was a practicing Christian. I went to church maybe twice a month, which in Britain is bordering on being fanatical. And I knew my Bible very well.
You're Protestant?
So I was a Protestant. So reading the Quran was so easy. All the prophets, peace be upon all of them, were all in there, with the exception of Muhammad, peace be upon him. And so I read a biography about his life. I can't remember the author, but he was a Muslim, and I just thought, oh, nobody can be this perfect. So I then read several different biographies by non-Muslims, and again, the same glowing terms and the references, and, you know, I just, this perfect human being was just so inspirational. And this is when the whole business of the Danish cartoons came out. I just thought to myself, 5, 6 years ago, I'd never heard of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Now I would give my last drop of blood to defend his honor, his memory, just, you know, what an incredible, inspirational, wonderful human being. And so I read, you know, a lot of, and I also read a biography on Khalid bin Walid, another inspirational character. And then I read more about Saladin Ayyubi, who I had read about as a child at school, about the Crusades. And here was a man who was perceived to be the enemy, but a man of great courage, of great wisdom. And these are traits that the English, although he was the enemy, the English loved in him. And that is why even today he is spoken about with great reverence in schools in Britain. And that's why I say to Muslims, don't get on your knees to the English. They won't appreciate it. They'll trample all over you. Stand up to them and show them courage and wisdom. They might not like you for it, but they will respect you. And so about 2 years later, less than 2 years,
30 months, I've read you spent 13 months reading about studying Islam.
Yes, yes. And I had some wonderful scholars across the world that I was able to consult. And
At these 13 months, you were just studying for your knowledge, or in some time between you decided that you may be Muslim?
I felt that it was the natural progression, the natural step forward. And I guess that I was trying to go through all the small print to find the hidden traps or the hidden clauses. I couldn't find it. And people say it must have been a big leap of faith, but I said, you know, at the end of the day, I was praying to the same God. All the prophets were the same with the exception of Muhammad, peace be upon him. So it wasn't a big leap of faith at all. I felt it was just a small step. Taking a rough diamond and polishing it to perfection. And that's what I felt Islam was. So for me, it was a better way of life, a more honest way of life, a cleaner way of living, and it just felt very right.
Can you describe me the moment that you decided, in which you decided to be a Muslim? You remember it?
It finally came on the 29th of June, a very rainy night in London. And the next day I was going to fly off to Qatar to work for Al Jazeera. And I just felt that, that so many new things were happening in my life. And by this time I was praying like a Muslim. I was eating and behaving and dressing.
The Muslim pray?
Yes.
Why?
Again, it just felt as though I could connect more. As a Christian, you're encouraged to go to the church and use the priest as a conduit to God. As a Muslim, I just, you know, had that direct line.
Yes.
So everything felt right, and I rang some friends in Birmingham and I said, I want to do it, and I want to do it tomorrow, but I am flying off, so it will have to be in the morning. And they drove through the night, and I took my Shahada at home.
With the Muslim friends?
Yes, yes.
Why you thought it's very important to make, it's just formality, why you thought it's very important to take Shahada?
I just thought that that I wanted, if I was going to work and live in a Muslim country, that would be a good time to be a Muslim. And so when I entered Qatar airport, I was barely a few hours old as a Muslim.
MashaAllah. There's a lot of allegations against Islam that it is against the woman, and there is a lot of people saying that I can be a Muslim but I cannot wear hijab. There's a lot of things against women. It was said that Islam against women. These things wasn't in your mind when you decided to be a Muslim?
I didn't wear a hijab for more than a year. I knew it was an obligation, and it didn't matter how many excuses I made. I knew that that it is an obligation, and I don't know any Muslim woman who has gone to perform Umrah or Hajj without her hijab, because she knows it's an obligation. And she might use an excuse, well, I'm living in the West now, or, well, I've got Western lifestyles, and maybe it'll be better if it's half off my head, or if it's, you know, they know. They know it's an obligation, and it doesn't matter how many times they try and reinterpret what is in the Quran. It is there quite clearly.